Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar Creative and Media Innovation in Asia, preparing your brand for a cookieless world. So the digital advertising that we've been used to is fast changing, as you all know, and cookies have long been the cornerstone of audience targeting. But now there's a much stronger call to uphold consumer privacy, and you being here today means that you've heeded that call. So in partnership with AdTech Adzymic, the leader in display advertising on the web, we bring you this virtual event that seeks to demystify how your brand can remain innovative and creative in this emerging privacy first and cookie-less internet. So, welcome everybody, and we're very excited to have you here today. So, we have a great presentation and panel for you today, but first, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So, all of us here are from marketing and advertising, and we want to know what you represent. So, yes, so we just have a poll question. So if you could please answer that. So maybe you're from the brand side, you're from the marketing agency, or you're from the tech provider. So we want to know. Okay, so please answer that. All right, so okay, so majority are from the brand side. And all right, all right. So since we are a webinar, okay, so since we are a webinar, an Asia-wide webinar, so we want to know where you're viewing from. So maybe you're from Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, or Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, India, Hong Kong. Yeah, so please answer the next poll. Okay, so I myself, I'm actually hosting the webinar straight from the Philippines. So all right, so a lot of Singaporeans actually, and then followed by Filipinos, and then Malaysia. So we have actually a great mix. Yes. Okay. So thank you guys. So I know that we're all familiar with the platform Zoom. So just before I introduce you to our first presenter for today, I would just remind you of a few things that you can do here on Zoom. So all of the participants are now muted, but we encourage you to please send out any questions that you have throughout the presentation on the Q&A chat below. So we're gonna attend to them after the presentation in the panel for the special Q&A portion. So please just feel free to send out your questions in the Q&A chat below. So, all right. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to the first presenter for today. Okay. All right. So our first presenter for today is Travis Teo. He is the co-founder and executive director of Adzymic. So Adzymic is an ad tech company that helps brands and agencies simplify the creative management processes and improve their display advertising performance. So, hi, Travis.
Yeah.
Hi, Travis. The floor is yours.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, just trying to navigate the Zoom.
Yes,
Let me try share my screen.
Go
Hope
ahead.
everyone can see. Yeah. Hey, thanks, China. Hold on. Let me share screen. Can everybody see my screen? Yep. Yeah. Good. So I'm Travis, co-founder of Adzymic. Just a quick introduction about Adzymic. So we are advertising technology company that focus on helping advertising agencies or advertisers to improve the digital advertising performance. We do it in two ways. One is through our creative, and second is through data. So this topic about transitioning from a cookie world to a cookieless world has been a big topic in my heart, and I believe the audience here probably share the same sentiment. I know that this has been an ongoing discussion about how you guys can transit cookieless world. One things that I saw in the research that done by Epsilon few probably last year mentioned that 69% of marketers think that the impact of third-party cookies depreciation will have a bigger impact than GDPR or CCPA, which is the California Privacy Act. And a big 80% aren't really confident that their vendors can provide a viable solution. So we're going to do a simple poll today as well to kind of see does the audience here share the same sentiment, right, in terms of whether the depreciation of third-party cookies do have impact on your marketing activities. Yeah. Feel free to submit your answer, and we're probably going to take a few seconds and then share the result here. Yep. So once I think we have enough submission, we can probably show a quick result. Okay. Probably around more than 60% feel that there's moderately impacted. 21% feel that they are significantly impacted. Yeah, so don't know. That is something that I will be going through as well. Why we feel that this is an important topic, and hopefully you were able to learn something after this session. Yeah, the second poll. How prepared is the organization for the transition to a cookieless world in 2022? So are you fully prepared, moderately prepared, somewhat prepared, not prepared at all? Hopefully not. Yeah, don't know. Probably that is some may feel that you're not really sure. Yeah. Okay. 40% probably somewhat prepared. 20% not prepared at all. Probably around 50% is kind of like not prepared at all and don't know. Yeah, hopefully today's session will kind of share some lights in terms of what kind of approaches you can do, how you can prepare for the cookieless world, right? And before I go into that, is really to explain for those who say that they're not really sure, does it have impact? Just want to explain to you why in this industry there's such a big topic about cookieless, right? So last year in 2020, Chrome announced that Google announced that Chrome is no longer supporting third-party cookies. It's gone away. And actually, for the past 15 years, third-party cookie has been one of the key identifier to identify users across domains in the open web, right? So this is just one example that let's say John, who visited advertiser A, and the way that advertiser can track John is probably set a cookie so that if John didn't make a purchase, leave the site, advertiser can actually continue to target John at the publishers. So at the publisher side, if John visit, let's say publisher A, and publisher A will through the supply side platform submit a bid request about John, and there's a way that on the advertiser side able to identify John, and then using a real-time bidding to win the impression and submit the ad to the publisher. So in order to do this kind of real-time bidding, it's actually require kind of a cookie sync that has been going on at the background. So without the cookie sync, without third-party cookies, there's a few things that we're not able to perform, right? A few things is like advertiser will no longer able to target John, right? That means that the whole notion about digital advertising, targeting the right person at the right time will not be possible, right, without cookie. Advertisers were not able to limit the number of ads to John. That means that the frequency cap will have a challenge. You can't restrict number of ads that's shown to John. You will have wasted impression. And then there will be attribution issue. Basically, advertisers not able to see if John has converted after viewing the ads. So there's all these different kind of issues that face when third party is gone. So yeah, and since Google announced about this whole depreciation of third-party cookies back in 2020, there's actually quite a lot of solutions out there, kind of proposed of alternate solutions. One is could be login hash email as first-party data. Google themselves actually come up with their own flock flash under the Google Privacy Sandbox. And some vendors out there have some very innovative way of contextual targeting using semantic AI, keywords targeting. There were a bunch of universal ID being kind of spring out for the past few months. kind of resolve this whole identity issue, right? The other way is using probabilistic. So in my mind, these are all really great solutions, right? In terms of replacing cookie, but it's not really kind of one size fit all. There's no kind of one solution to kind of mitigate this whole cookieless world, right? What I believe for advertisers and agencies and tech partners is really work together, a multi-pronged approach of solutions, practices to ensure that brands themselves continue to prepare when you transit into a cookieless world. There are right now, there are of course other ways of identification, such as device ID, IDFA by Apple. Those themselves has also kind of undergoing some privacy control. So for example, Apple require all the apps to have opt-in in order to track individual audience using the IDFA, right? So as we move into a privacy first approach, right, the whole thinking of targeting attributions will need to be kind of relooked into. So what I propose is actually three-pronged approach in the post-cookie world, right? First of all, I think we need to start to continue to look at who shall you target. Essentially is building your first-party data, which I think quite a number of vendors do have solutions available. I'm going to share that some of the different approaches that you can take a look at. Where your ads should appear, right? So basically is creating your own brands of sites. And lastly, it's about creative, right? How you can elevate creatives to drive performance. So these are the three things that I feel is going to be essential when you transit into a post-cookie world. I'll start off with who. Just some approaches. So yeah, Google doesn't leave the industry high and dry, right? So they actually provide kind of an alternate solution. They call it the Google Privacy Sandbox. And what does the Google Privacy Sandbox means is it's actually a series of technology built within Chrome browser in a privacy manner that advertisers or publishers can continue use the different APIs being built for targeting or for measurement purpose. Two examples that illustrate here. One is called the federated learning of a cohorts, which is basically grouping different audiences or individuals into interest group based on browsing history, right? So I mentioned about John just now, right? So potentially, if John visit a sportwear, right, potentially browser will classify him as someone who is interested in sports, right? So this is somewhere that we can target. Advertisers can also classify their own audience according to the different interest group based on the different sections of the sites they visit, right? So this is actually part of the whole privacy sandbox manner. The one of the limitation is that all these cannot be individually targeted, right? That means that there's no way that the advertisers or the publishers can individually target John, right? What they can target is, okay, people who are interested in sportswear. The pros is that Google take up 60% market share, so definitely there's a scale to it, and it's open work group. There's actually open work group that is available for different industry players to participate in. It's kind of open source, and you can build different use cases within proposal, right? And Google being Google, right, they have a huge footprint in terms of Google Ads, in the DV360, which is a buying platform, and potentially Google is going to use the same cohort targeting within their platform. And also last week, Google had a marketing event. They mentioned that they will not be doing any backdoor. That means that they will not be using their own ID to do audience targeting. We will wait and see, and I believe that they because of this whole privacy thing, they will make sure that they also participate in this whole privacy sandbox. The cons is that it's still work in progress, right? It's still ongoing trial, especially in Europe region because of the GDPR. There's a concern that the privacy sandbox were not able to undergoing certain GDPR compliance. So that's still being sorted out. And I think let me just try to fix this. Yeah, so it's still, because it's only happening on the Chrome browser, right? So it's actually leaving out potentially more than like probably 40% of the market share. And you can't, so what happened to those that are not using Chrome, right? So because all this transaction about the bidding is happening in the Chrome environment, that will be a lot of dependency on the Google. So this is one approach that you should be looking into, but I'm not suggesting that you should be just looking at this. So there should be different ways that you should be looking at when you build out your first party audience. Okay, the second part, which is after the Chrome announcement, right, that there's actually one of the way that user can identify, not just using cookies, using a universal ID, right? So one of the way that identity can be produced is using a hash email or login. So example that if John visited advertiser A, and there should be a kind of a value exchange for John to leave an email address, so that there will be a hash email that can be captured by the advertiser, DMP or CDP, and using kind of a unified approach, unified ID to link up this hash email with the publishers, right? So this is one way that you can uniquely identify an audience across different domains between the advertisers and the publishers. So one example is the Unified 2.0 initiative by Trade Desk, which is now kind of open source. They pass it over, I think, to the IAB Tech Lab for kind of further growing that initiative. The process that is deterministic. That means that the advertisers probably were able to uniquely identify the audience. Because it's owned by the clients, you have a control, and it's kind of opt-in. You make sure that there should be supposed to be a privacy opt-in to make sure that what the users coming in is actually what they are opted in for, right? The concept is that it's still on the beta. Potentially there's limited scale because not all users will leave an email, and you potentially require a customer data platform or DMP to build that first party audiences, right? So this is one approach. The second one is actually cookie based. So basically is using a first party cookie to store a unique identity. So you may be wondering, okay, I thought that cookie is gone, so why it still appear here? So what is gone is actually third party cookies. What is still available is actually first party cookie, which is cookies set by the own client's brand domain, right? So these cookies probably sit within the brand domain. You're not able to share it with other players, so you can't do any cookie sync and things like that. And probably requires some kind of probabilistic approach to uniquely identify users. One example, we call it like fingerprinting approach, to really based on the user device settings such as browser resolution, the version of the OS, the version of the browser, and all this to come up with a uniquely identify a user in a probabilistic way. So this one of the pros is that it's scalable. That means that you can everyone there's a way that you can uniquely identify the users if they are opt-in, and you don't require email. So there's a scalability on it. There's longevity in the first party cookie. What is required is kind of like a universal ID approach to link up. So if you're working with specific data management platform, you need to ensure that there's a way that this data can be activated to run across the advertising platform, right? So yeah, so these are kind of different ways that you can build your first party audience. This is one slide I want to share as well. It's really to share with you in terms of the adoption of universal ID across the different publisher side. So one thing is that this one that the top few I see is the ID5 ID, unified ID by Trade Desk, and the identity link, I think by LiveRamp. These are the kind of top universal ID that got adoption across the publishers. The good thing is that there's still 6 months to go before the depreciation of the cookies on Chrome. So I believe these numbers is going to going up for the next few months, or even by next year. Okay. The second things is that mentioned about is where your ad should appear. So what you should be looking at is really curating your own brand sites. One way is looking at past performance, looking at the different contextual targeting, ensure there's a brand safe, fraud-free environment, co-op with your local publishers in terms of setting up deals so that you can leverage on their second-party data so that you can have a better targeting across. So make sure that you do testing with a list of sites that have been performing well and leverage on some of those contextual targeting options and all that, right? So in terms of where has not, I mean, in terms of media planning, usually when it comes to programmatic, we always talk about audience targeting and things like that. Site list is probably something that you should be given high priority in the future, because I mean that is one way that you should be looking into once you move into a post-cookie world. The last part is really delivering creative impact. And this is one topic I always be involved in, because I mean, Adzymic is a creative solution provider. I'm going to share with you some practices that we have been seeing when we work with different clients, right? So, and creative is always an afterthought, right? So, but if one study done by Nelson a few years ago, right, it actually mentioned that creative take out 47% of sales contribution, right? So, and I think when it comes to media buying, a lot of time creative usually afterthought, or it's a separate creative ideation process, right? The way that we should able to look at creative is really looking into different audiences, the different objectives you should look into, and rather than just providing a standard banners, right? And that's where using technology come to play. You should be looking at how leveraging technology to simplify the whole creative production, using creative automation to personalize the ads. Data will explain a little bit about DCO, and then yeah, turning out some rich media creative at scale easily. Just some example, just to show. So this is just a few example that you can start to think about how you can use creative to drive performance, right? So this is one client that we did in Singapore, is Esplanade, who they actually run quite a number of events before the COVID hit us. Yeah, so instead of running static banners for different events, right? So what we do is actually help to amplify their content within the banner space, so that I mean there's much more user engagement. There's user can engage without leaving the sites that they are navigating. So it doesn't really disrupt the whole user behavior. So this is just one example to show. You can play the video. You can expand the video. The other one is it could be a automotive clients that can showcase different features of a product without actually leaving the website or to go to landing page. So all the content can be consumed within the banner itself. Or it could be on mobile environment, a vertical ads that can show a video showcasing different product information. Or it could be a performance-based, capturing leads and all this, as well as shopping ads, showcasing different product information within the banner. So all this is actually all the different innovations that's happening within the creative, and it's going to be important once you move into a post-cookie world. You should start looking at creative as well. When it comes to DCO, is explained before that it's really using a standard master template as a master creative, and within a master template, right, there's actually different elements that you can interchange, like the product names, the title, the descriptions. You can just swap in, swap out the different elements within the creative in real time based on different data signal, right? So in the post-cookie world, there's still different ways that you can personalize the ads. You can actually target based on location, right? The nearest locations are showing the most relevant brands outlet, or based on weather, right? Is it based on hot? You probably serve an ad. Is cold, serve an ad. Based on time of the day, to personalize ads. and based on the different cohort targeting, that means that you can target based on the different the cohorts that probably the Google built, and can target based on first-party audience as well, based on the abandoned cart, last products, or probably not at the granular level as what the identity, the third-party cookie now provided, but probably in a more kind of interest group way that you can target, okay, people who are interested in visited the sport session, then you can show a series of sport shoes and things like that. Yeah, so all this is still possible in the post-cookie world. So you should start to think about how you can use creative as a way to elevate your media performance. So yeah, so this is kind of summarize what you should be looking at, with who, with where, and what in terms of content deliver. There's no one size fit all. So just to make sure that you embark on a series of testing. The good thing is that there's still time for you to testing, work with your agencies, work with your tech partners to build certain test cases, so that once the things come, right, you are prepared for it. Yeah. So yeah, that's all. I'm going to hand over back to Shaina. Yeah, and to see if any questions and answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Travis, for the really great presentation. I think you really covered a lot of ground there. Really, what a great way to start, our webinar, because you really walked us through the general overview of where we are right now, and giving us, sharing with us the possible alternatives for, for third-party cookies and your three-pronged approach. Yeah. So we actually have some really great questions here today. So yeah. Travis,
yeah, maybe I'll just pick a few I don't think I can, because of time, I can answer all.
Yeah.
I think the first one is mentioned about what is the best of alternate of third-party cookies, all right? I don't think there's one best way. It really depends on what objectives you're looking at. You should be looking at different ways and to build your first-party audience. For example, if you are clients that have a lot of email addresses, right? Users will leave the email because you have a direct purchase approach. Then probably building a first-party audience using hash email or using email will work, right? But if you don't have a lot of that first-party data, email data to engage with, then probably you need to look for alternative, which is using some kind of like a first-party cookie approach to do that specific targeting. Yeah.
So it still depends, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. There's probably one also mentioned that, okay, going to a network publishers and work direct deals sound like we have regressed to the day of display. Yeah, I should say that could be, because I think but it doesn't mean that it's not a good approach. But I think it's really about agencies or brands to really start to look at sites, at least some publisher side as well, right? I think this is something that we have not been focusing on since we go into targeting audience, but working with a network of publishers, working out the deals, right? This is something that you should start to look into. What is different is that there's probably technology out there to smoothen out the whole deal process. But this is something that you should explore as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I actually have a lot of questions. So here one from Mohammed Adam.
Okay, how different will performance management and result reporting in the cookieless world? What metrics will change? So yeah, so I think in terms of the Google Privacy Sandbox environment, they actually have a specific APIs that allow advertisers to measure specific measurement like view-through conversions and all that. And also that once, let's say there's the universal ID get a good adoption, right? That unique identity can also be the one that used for performance measurement as well. Yeah, so it's just that we need to continue to look into like which one will fit. So it's good that we start into at least understand that there's all these options available, and start testing that.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, so maybe we could answer a few more. Travis, you want to? There's a question here about from Teddy. It's about second-party data. So yeah, so first-party data, of course, is the ideal, but how much should advertisers, you think, should rely on second-party data?
So I think realize, I think the one thing just I mentioned, or second-party data, is that it's come from the publisher side, or that means that you're probably working with some big publishers that they are also building their data audiences, because they also don't want to be too dependent on, for example, like Google of the world, and so they are aggressive building second-party data. So it's really about doing a testing to see that, I mean, is this kind of second-party data scalable in that sense. I also mentioned about third-party data, right? So, I mean, I think some of the marketing is still leveraging on third-party audience data. Not to confuse that all this third-party data will still work if it's not using a cookie approach. There are third-party audience data audience out there like IOTA or iFrame and all that. They are building third-party audience data. If it's using like mobile devices, using let's say hash email and all that, it still work, right? And that is yeah. So looking into second-party data, third-party data, right? That is still you need to like start to test and to understand the different approaches.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Travis. We actually have a lot of great questions from our audience, but we won't be able to answer all of them within this webinar. But the Adzymic team will try their best to track responses and reach out to you for answers. Okay, so yeah, so thank you very much, Travis, for that presentation. Okay, so now I'm very excited, and it's my pleasure to actually introduce you to our panel for today. Okay, so let me introduce you to our moderator, Peggy Ko. She is currently the head of growth and client success at Adzymic, and she spearheads its marketing efforts while pursuing higher performance for client campaigns. So yeah, so welcome, Peggy.
Thanks, Joanna. Hi. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's a very pertinent issue in terms of preparing for a privacy-first and cookieless internet. Together with our esteemed panelists from Southeast Asia, we're going to uncover some of the challenges and opportunities in the impending conditions of our digital industry. So it's my pleasure to introduce them to you. Joining us is Tanushree Rastogi. Tanushree, you wanna? Hi, Tanushree. So she's brand and media lead at BK Burger King Indonesia.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. And we also have Annie, head of digital business at Income, a leading insurance company in Singapore.
Hello, hi.
And last but not least, we have Eileen Borromeo, the head of marketing for Southeast Asia and Pakistan at Payoneer, which is a cross-border e-payments platform. So welcome, panelists. So let's start. In Travis's presentation, he covered the three-pronged approach of preparing for a cookieless world, which is number one, to build up robust first-party data. Number two, to curate a site list that is brand safe. And three, to use creatives as a lever to drive better performance. Now, how are each of your brands preparing to transition to a privacy-first internet? Let's start with Eileen. So Payoneer being a predominantly B2B business, you acquire customers online, so accurate targeting at your niche audience group must be crucial to your digital media strategy. So how is Payoneer preparing to continue targeting at B2B in the future?
Okay, so we're using a lot of first-party data to reach our audiences. This used to come from a lot of our grassroots events pre-pandemic, so I hope everyone still remembers that. Now we rely on a lot of content-driven marketing like webinars and ebooks and even referrals from our existing customers. We also work with relevant partners that allow us to be extremely targeted with our communications because, again, very niche audiences. It's tricky because there are quite a number of parameters we need to look at. So I'll just share it very quickly. For us, we have to check if they have cross-border or international business because this is where you primarily use our service. Second, we classify audiences either as high earner or long tail. So, it's not always obvious when you actually look into the targeting approach. And we also look at relevant vertical verticals that are essential to our business, so whether they're freelancers or sellers selling into Amazon. So there are quite a few considerations needed to be able to target for our industry.
So it's a combination of online and offline efforts
Yes.
to gather a quality and clean, reliable base, which for the future, of course, needs to be permission-based.
Yes,
right, Eileen?
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the first-party data. That's the most crucial. And let's move over to Annie of income. So we've seen high degrees of digital transformation in your organization over the years, some of which include using Google Analytics 360 and the BigQuery DMP to connect and analyze your first-party customer data. Tell us more about how you anticipate this to set Income's marketing prowess apart from your competition.
Hey, hi. So we know that this will come hit us sooner or later, actually 3 years ago. So we started implementing a lot of complex tracking parameters in all our digital properties. And we ensure that we are able to convert all potential third-party data into first-party before this new regulation hits us. So we throughout the process, obviously, we are also quite prepared to, implement other new tech tools to ensure that we are able to study deep into the data that we collected and make sure that we are able to identify those landing cookies, who they are, and convert them to a first party so that we can continue to target them despite the changes. So we always believe in being prepared before any regulation catch up in our region, because the best thing is to learn from the Western regions when new regulations are implemented. Sooner or later, Asia Pacific will catch up. So we sort of follow their timeline and get ourselves ready. So 3 years ago, we started doing a lot of things in this area.
So that's a lot of foresight. And we're happy to see that Income is more than ready for the day to come, because you're such a legacy organization. You must be very rich in your first party data. And so with technology now, you're able to really harness it when the time comes.
Yep.
Okay, and so moving on to Tanushree of Burger King. Now, given the brick and mortar nature of BK, how do you gather data on your customers at the moment, and how do you use it in the future?
So, like you said, given the retail format of our business, is my voice clear? Yeah. The customer journey, or the guest journey as we like to call it, it's both. It's online to offline and it's online to offline as well. Online to online, I meant. And so speaking of the first scenario where it's online to offline, where let's say somebody saw an ad in the digital space and then went and transacted at our stores, we know the data from both the ends. So we know the customer data from the online side in terms of the custom audiences on walled gardens, or their cookies, or their device IDs. And from the offline side, we have the transaction data through which we can understand a lot about our purchase behavior of the guest, which products work better, what pricing worked better, their payment preferences. And so where the gap lies for us right now is that we're not able to match this online data that we have on the customers to the offline data that we have on their transactions. Then the second kind, which is fairly linear, is the online to online journey, where we work closely with delivery aggregators and we buy inventory on their platforms, and then we track conversions. Again, in this scenario, we are able to know who are these people who are transacting on the delivery aggregators. And because of the partnerships that we have with either e-wallet players or with delivery aggregators as well, we're able to retarget these audiences who have transacted. But do we know who they are? No, we don't, because of privacy issues because of data privacy issues. And so for us, we've been trying to bridge the gap between our data silos. And last year, to address these gaps, we introduced the Burger King app to understand the customer at an individual level. And what this does for us is now it completes the online journey and the offline journey. So whether they transact through delivery or whether they transact through our stores, we are able to get a full holistic view. And this is helping us build our own first-party data so that we can get to a level of personalized marketing.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, great. Now that, there's the pandemic going on, actually it's sad to say it's the perfect opportunity for a retail business to start collecting the sort of first party data, because people actually have to come online to look for your information, order your food, get your deliveries and things like that. So actually there are opportunities within the current COVID situation. Yeah, so that was basically how we've seen your 3 organizations get ready for a cookieless world. Now, another aspect, and I'll pose this question to Eileen. What do you think are the best methods to approach ad tracking that would balance efficiency with consumer privacy?
Okay, so there's really a fine line between using data to serve relevant content and being creepy and stalking people. Using the data to infer what their needs are, at least feel a little bit more helpful than just being that salesperson that just pops in to pitch something from out of the blue. For us, consent and transparency would be 2 things to keep in mind. If you follow someone as they're browsing, for example, for work-related things, then serving up your ads makes sense versus their leisure browsing behavior, which is when you don't want to intrude. I remember a useful article from the Harvard Business Press about ads that don't overstep, and they actually mentioned 3 things. So the first one is trust. So this is about disclosing to people why they're being served a particular ad. So we see this sometimes when we click on ads on Facebook or on YouTube. And they found out that when trust was high, disclosing acceptable flows actually boosted the click-through rates. The second one is control. So this is central to your privacy concerns. And it's the central to privacy concerns is actually the lack of control. We see Apple doing this now, giving people the choice to allow or not allow which apps can track them, and offering people meaningful control over the information that they have. And this will likely improve ad performance. And the third one, I think, is I call it common sense, but it's really using data judiciously. So it's really asking ourselves, why do we need to track which data, and how do we really want to use it? Not just tracking data for the sake of just collecting information about our customers.
Yeah, I think the name of the game going forward is transparency and being fair to our customers, right? And letting them know what the data is being collected for. And it's like they say, it's a trade-off. The internet is free, but data is actually the currency that keeps the internet alive. So hopefully the ecosystem understands that this is how we play. Okay, so now the next question, I think we had one of our participants also bring that up. It's talking about the impact on ad spend when cookieless comes into play. So once we transit into a cookieless world, how's that going to impact? There's going to be impact in terms of audience targeting in walled gardens versus the open web, which is programmatic. So Tanushree, do you foresee any impact to the allocation of ad spends on display versus within the walled gardens of the tech giants?
So basically our approach to allocating spends, it starts with the different data points that are available across, let's say, the walled gardens or the open web, the app ecosystem, the OOTs and the digital OH. Basically, that gives us a means to target the customers either through, the authenticated user IDs, third-party cookies, mobile devices, postcodes, locations, you name it. Like Eileen was also mentioning, there's so many of these different data points available, and it's for us to choose which data point is important for us to utilize. Having said that, at the moment, we are spending more on walled gardens. And the reason for that is that fast food as a category itself, it's a low investment category. And we're always looking to maximize reach and frequency at the lowest viewable CPMs, which by the aspect of scale happens to be on the walled gardens. So we will certainly continue to invest on the wall gardens, but not necessarily shift all our spends. And the relevancy for us on the open web, like Travis also mentioned, is utilizing the contextual targeting, which is either through search or semantics. And for us, contextual targeting makes a lot of sense since we're a food brand. And this will continue to play an integral part in a cookieless world. Plus, what I'm keen on really exploring is the predictive modeling techniques that are, creating more advanced form of dynamic contextual targeting. So that could be something that we could look, if that proves to be a success, then surely we'll be spending more over there. And having said that, given that we have invested in building our own first-party data, we will be able to understand with time that which channel is being more effective in terms of conversion, retention, or engagement for us. And then we'll have to allocate spends accordingly. So I feel for Burger King, the journey is pretty nascent and a lot of tests and learning to be done before we can, say, okay, this is where all the budget is going.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess even with the transition to cookieless, but Google is offering Flock, which is going to be interest-based. And so it's an opportunity to categorize your customers into archetypes, right? Whether they are into the meatless sort of alternatives or just your classic big guy going for a beef burger, that sort of archetype. And it's a plug, but this is where like a CMP, a solution like Adzymic can come in and systematically create ad sets for the different archetypes, for the different flocks that you might be pursuing. So that's one application. So I hope that answers your question, Tram, in terms of like how brands are foreseeing the shifts in spends and how to apply technology when the change comes about. Another question, which is, posed to Annie. So Income has always been a firm believer in using display on the open web. I believe it's because this is top funnel play and it's building pipeline for your bottom funnel conversions. So how has Income been able to capitalize on all your creative assets for rapid adaptation for programmatic display?
Yeah, so we basically ensure every single campaign has a funnel down strategy, and we leverage these SEO solutions as much as possible to ensure that we are able to nurture and bring the customer down the funnel automatically. So for the past 2 years, we've been partnering with Adzymic to sort of deliver this and enable us to be more contextual and relevant across the entire funnel. And Peggy, like you say, we use all this as a top funnel again, and we truly believe that the bigger the top funnel, the bigger the bottom funnel will be. And we have to continue to do this to ensure that we are able to automatically bring the customer down the funnel, and we are able to sort of measure our top funnel investment in terms of conversion rate as well. So that has been helping us a lot to justify why we are still spending in this area.
Correct. And I think this is related to a question which was posed by Charles. He's asked us like how we look for significant growth if you rely too much on first-party data. How do you find new customers, right, Annie? So basically what we're saying here is there's a need to take care of the top funnel, and that comes through programmatic display as one of the key approaches to it. And even though third-party cookies are going away, first-party cookies are still here to stay, right? Annie?
Correct. And I think this question can be also answered from another perspective. In my view, is that then brands should start implementing your server-side tracking to make sure that all the third-party cookies now officially owned by you guys, and then you can continue the game to target them despite not knowing who they are. But you own the cookie instead of a third-party cookie. So if any one of you have not done your server-side implementation, I think that's something that you need to do immediately.
Yeah, that's right. I think first-party data continues to be brought up over and over again. And that's related to another question from Lily, one of our participants. She's a startup. Startup has 0 first-party data to begin with. And she's asking what recommendations might you have for a startup to navigate faster through the cookieless world? I guess it's how does a small company get that data to begin with? Do you have any recommendations? Maybe Eileen, because you do have some experience in this.
So what we actually do is to make sure that they're also able to utilize your traditional media for reach. So, if there's something interesting to do PR around your service or your startup, then you can actually drive a lot of organic traffic coming from these. So, there's also a lot of influencers that you can tap that have their natural audiences. So you have to be a little more creative, and having also have come from the startup world, there's really no budget for anything. So, as much as I'd love to be spending on, Adzymic's services, you just really have to, think on your feet and get your, your product or your service out there. So that would be my advice.
I mean, it's a great question because we have Eileen on the panel right here, and she's got legit startup experience. Okay, so we're down to our last question, and this is to all the panelists now. In preparing for a privacy-first internet, what are your expectations as a brand? What are your expectations of your media agencies and your tech vendors? Tanushree, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think essentially the key task remains the same for the media agencies and the tech vendors, which is to utilize various data points of the customers and then to target them for the best conversion rates. So simplifying that job really well. So then whether it's third-party data or first-party data, building an ad tech ecosystem that manages different data points and then identifying the different media activators for it would be essential. And for a brand like ours, like Burger King, that has recently started transitioning into first-party data, we're actually looking at agencies and tech partners to help us with two key things. The first one is to organize these new data points that are coming in. We need to create audience segmentation so we're able to move towards personalized marketing. And the second would be to develop strategies, to put strategies in place through which we can convert our third-party data and move it to first-party data. And like Annie mentioned, and Peggy, you mentioned as well, taking all that top awareness, like building awareness and getting the data from third-party and then moving into first-party. So essentially, those tasks are key for us. The other bit is the data alliances that are now becoming a norm, given that, most, it's an effort to confront the duopoly of Facebook and Google. And so helping brands drive these strategic data partnerships, I think, will go a long way. And also, like we had discussed earlier, identifying the right publishers to strike data partnerships with the brand will also prove useful. So given that publishers will still be able to utilize their own cookie data, if let's say a brand such as ours as Burger King, we're able to strike partnerships with the top 10 publishers in Indonesia and understand the audience behavior of Burger King audiences on these top 10 publishers, I think that's a task that would be valuable for us.
And Annie?
That's a tall order.
No problem. Annie?
Yeah. I think my expectation for media agencies or even our tech and digital agencies are hoping that they can harness the latest or upcoming technologies and coupled with our rich first-party data, helping us to stay at the forefront of the game and be the key expert and advisor for income. I think because as a brand, you will never be as advanced as the agency who are in this game all the time. So I think that is something that we hope that they can help us with.
And finally, Eileen.
Okay, so for me, I actually go back to basics. So for our media and tech partners, they really need to understand the business we're in, and it's not something very easy to comprehend. They also need to understand our customers' behavior, not just in terms of, the usual customer journey, but their receptivity also to when and how we reach them. So I feel that a privacy-first internet landscape means being more deliberate and mindful about the planning and targeting versus a more free-flowing shotgun approach of the past.
Thanks very much. I think this is useful insights, because I know there are agency partners and also tech vendors amongst our audience today. Okay, so thank you very much to our panelists for sharing your insights. So I think to summarize, while coping with the changes of a cookieless environment may be unsettling in terms of our daily workflows, a privacy-first internet promises to be better for all of us. And so to conclude, marketeers must prepare a strong foundation by collecting clean and reliable data that is permission-based. And then you can use it to seek out the advanced tools to harness that data, which can then help you to uncover opportunities to drive better campaign results. So I hope that today's discussion will help our participants to craft your strategies for the very near future.
Okay, thank you very much, Peggy. Thank you for our, to our great panel. Thank you, Annie, Aileen, and Tanushri for that very fruitful discussion. So yeah, so the world of digital advertising is a massive one. It's just great to get to know the different perspectives of marketers from these different industries. So as what Peggy said, we hope that this webinar today has helped, shed a clearer light on the real challenge of ad tracking in a cookie-less and privacy-first internet, and the best strategies that you can employ in order to make that smooth transition. So as much as, you've really, to our audience, you've really sent out insightful questions, and as much as we want to answer all of them, we don't have enough time anymore. But as I've said earlier, the Adzymic team will try their best. We have taken note all of the questions, and the Adzymic team will try their best to reach out to you in the next few days for the answers. And also, a lot of our attendees have actually asked for a copy of Travis's presentation. So yes, we're also going to give you a copy of that. And also, please watch out for our communication on the on-demand access of the webinar. So yes, so once again, this webinar has been a partnership between MARKETECH APAC and Adzymic. Thank you all for being here today. Again, I'm Shaina of MARKETECH APAC, and have a great day, everyone, and please keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Take care.